Welcome to another devotion. Welcome to my channel, Prayer Force One Unites. Your host here, Wybette McClendon. Honored to have you join in on the devotions. A little history here. I am actually pulling out, going back in time and pulling out older devotions that I have done on Partners in Prayer on my Monday morning manna and when I had other hours aside from Monday morning. But I felt led to go ahead and just go back and redo some of these devotions and share them here because unfortunately they are disappeared from Facebook. So I'm going to share those with you. So thank you for joining. Share, reach out and invite others to join and to subscribe. Um, Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already and share. So I'm just honored to have you. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this devotion. And this one was one that I just felt like pulling out today, when he calls your name. And this was one that I did on December the 9th of 2024. So just a little back history on that. So the question is, how many of you can say that you've heard God call you by name verbally? Not many can say or have said that they've heard the audible voice of God. However, it's usually by strong impression, a thought dropped in your spirit, or something you knew was not of your own concocting. You didn't think it up, but it's a vision or a dream, etc. But rarely has many been able to say that they've heard the audible voice of God. And I know from my own life, there have been many times that I know God was speaking to me, but it was through his written word, reading the word, things just jumping off the page at me. And I knew that it was him speaking to me. And many times through other human beings that came and had a word from God. And I knew it was God because there was no other explanation. They had no way of knowing what I needed or what I was going through, but what the Lord gave them to say to me was spot on for what I needed. But how would it feel to actually hear God call you by name? How incredible would that be to hear the audible voice of God? So when God calls someone by name in the Bible, it establishes a special, intimate connection with them. Hearing God speak your name is a sign that he knows you personally as his beloved child. Exodus 33:17 says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, I will do this thing also that thou hast spoken, for thou hast found grace in my sight, and I know thee by name." And here are some whose names were called several twice in succession, and this particular one 3 times in one setting. And all of us know the well-known story, God calling someone by name in the Old Testament, and when he called little boy Samuel. Here God gets Samuel's attention by calling his name not once, but 3 times, raising him out of sleep. Now remember, Samuel has been brought to the temple, and the priest Eli is now taking care of him. His mother brought him as a dedication back to God and putting him there to be taught by the priest Eli. And so he's dead asleep, and he hears his name called, and it jerks him awake 3 times. And so we know the story. And Samuel didn't know what was going on, and all the time he thought it was Eli calling him. So after the 3rd time of him coming, like, "Did you call me?" Like, "No, boy, go back to sleep." But that 3rd time, Eli began to realize, wait a minute. Okay, this is the voice of God. So he instructed Samuel on the next time this happened on how to answer. So 1 Samuel 3, chapter 3, verses 10 through 11 says, "And the Lord came and stood and called out as other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel answered, as Eli had told him, Speak, for thy servant heareth. And the Lord said to Samuel, Behold, I will do a thing in Israel, at which both the ears of every one that heareth it shall tingle." You see, God had a special plan for Samuel, And it all started with the Lord calling him by name. So let's look at some other examples in the Bible. Abraham, Abraham. In Genesis 22, verse 11, and the angel of the Lord called him out of the heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, and seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. Through this major test of faith, Abraham heard the voice of God clearly calling his name. God had to, in order to get Abraham's attention, to stop him from going through with the sacrifice of his son, where God had already provided the lamb due to his willingness to hold nothing back from him. Another one, Jacob, Jacob. In Genesis 46, verse 3, and God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee to Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again, and Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. Here's another one. Moses, Moses. Exodus 3, chapter 3, verses 1 through 10. Moses has killed an Egyptian. He's fled from Pharaoh's punishment. Now he's living as a shepherd for his father-in-law out in the wilderness. One day, Moses sees this very strange sight. A bush is on fire, and yet it's not burning up. I think that would kind of freak me out a little bit. To see something burning and then it's just burning. There's just fire. It's not being consumed. And then this voice calls out of the flames, Moses, Moses. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. So moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen thine affliction, the affliction of my people, which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians. Here's another one. Saul. Saul was the Pharisee, actually a terrorist, if y'all didn't know, who wanted to imprison and murder as many Christians as he could. He even got letters from the high priest, y'all, authorizing him to round up the Christians in Damascus and drag them back to Jerusalem. But on the way, I love this story, on the way, he was blinded by a vision of the risen Jesus Christ, who calls him. I mean, he hit him with a light so strong until it literally he couldn't see. Have you ever looked at a bright light so strong and then it just you blinked, whoa, I can't see. You had to wait a minute to get your vision back. Well, this time his vision didn't come back right away. In this 22nd chapter of Acts, starting in verse 6, it said, And it came to pass that as I made my journey and was come nigh unto Damascus about noon, suddenly there shone from heaven a great light round about me. And I fell to the ground, and I heard a voice saying unto me, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And I answered, Who art thou, Lord? And he said unto me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom thou persecutest. Did it ever occur to you when he said, Who art thou, Lord? Somehow I just get this feeling that Saul knew exactly who was calling his name, because this experience was nothing like he'd ever experienced before. So he knew where that was coming from. Let's look at another one, Daniel in the Old Testament. He was not called twice, but he still heard his name audibly. Daniel chapter 10, verses 11 and 12. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright. For unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. I would imagine so. You got the very voice of God speaking to you. That would surely put you in a place, not of fear, but just in awe. And in verse 12 it says, Then he said unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. I heard you, and I'm coming. Daniel 12 and 9 said, and he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. And as I noted, all these times where God had called out these individuals, and I'm going back through all of them and just rehearsing them, I found a common thread. He had a very specific message and purpose for each one of them. Instruction, direction. I can't help but wonder in my frail human thinking, was it really audible? Well, from what these verses point out, he said, and that is clearly an action word that requires some sound. And if I'm talking to you and you go tell someone what I said, you will start it by saying, she said, and then proceed. I cannot imagine that the other individual would assume you merely had a thought dropped into your heart and you could say it came from me. I do not think that he probably would look at you like you lost your mind. So I have to believe that these individuals actually heard audibly their names being called. But what does it mean when these heard their names called out twice in succession? When God called a name twice as a direct address, it was to get their immediate attention. Something was urgent enough to cause God to address them in this manner. We can see that there was a sense of urgency. Whether we ever hear it once or twice, we better know he has something very specific to tell us. And you can guarantee hearing his voice call your name will get your attention very quick. The little Samuel heard it and it woke him up. He actually got up and went to Eli, believing that Eli was the one calling him. It took Eli a couple of times to realize what was really going on with Samuel, and he gave him wise instructions. Next time you hear it, answer, Here am I, Lord, I'm listening. Let's bring this to our day and time right now. What's left, well, I will say what's left of it. This was back in 24, but let's just bring it to where we are right now, beginning of 2026. Can we just wrap our heads around the fact that God knows each one of us by name? It's beyond amazing, awesome, wonderful, and all the great adjectives that I could throw in the mix. That God knows us so personally, knows our name. And here's why we can know this assuredly. Jeremiah 1 and 5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Isaiah 43 and 1. But now thus saith the Lord that created thee, O Jacob, and hath formed thee, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name. Thou art mine. There are literally over 100 verses in Scripture about God knowing our names. I know that even though we may not actually hear him audibly, that he does know exactly how to talk with us and to get our attention. He knows how to speak our language, trust me. But oh, when he calls my name that final time, I want it to be his voice telling me, thou good and faithful servant, enter in. Yvette, I know you. I knew you. I know you. You are mine. Welcome home to spend eternity with me. That's the most important of things, is to hear him call my name. Otherwise, he will not.
as it would mean he doesn't know me. Depart from me, I never knew you. That is scary. How dreadful. Oh God, let us remain in the fold as your sheep who know your voice and you know your sheep. God, I want to hear you call my name. I want that time with you, communing with you and hearing you speak to me. Is that your prayer today? God, speak to us, and may our ears be open to you when you call our name. Lord, when you call my name, I want to say, speak. Thy servant is listening.